Hi, everybody. It's been a while since I've read a chapter from our book. I wasn't sure if anybody was really watching anymore, but I did hear from at least one student, and then I asked another one, and they're waiting on the next chapter. So I got to get that up there for you guys. Remember, our book is My Life as a Broken Bungee Cord, and we are on chapter 3, which is called Up, Up, and Away. If you remember, chapter 2, we left off with the fact that his Wally's parents said that it was okay for him to go up in the hot air balloon, which he was not overly thrilled about. So let's see what happens in chapter 3, Up, Up, and Away. At precisely 6:24 the following morning, I had proof that God really exists. And more importantly, I knew that he loved me. Me, Wally Walking Disaster McDougal. Opera, Wall Street, and I were downstairs in the restaurant trying to eat or drink the slimy half cooked eggs. Eating them wasn't the problem. Trying to get the slippery little fellas up to our mouths was the tricky part. Just when we were ready to trade in our forks for some straws, Miguel strode in. Bad news, he said. It's too windy to go ballooning. My soul sank, my spirit soared, my heart leaped. So, he said, I guess we'll just have to wait until tomorrow. My soul groaned, my spirit crashed, my heart fell on its face. I was still going to die. It was just going to be a day later. Either way, it looked like there was going to be a definite lack of birthday gifts, let alone birthdays, in my future. So, what do we do today? Wall Street asked. Not camping, Opera blurted out, or nature walks or any outdoors junk. Relax, Opera, Miguel said, breaking into an easy grin. I've got something you'll all enjoy. It doesn't involve hiking boots, sleeping bags, or freeze-dried anything, does it? Miguel chuckled. Meet me down in the parking lot in 2 hours. He headed back toward the door. Oh, and sis? He turned toward Wall Street. Be sure to bring your hairdryer. My hairdryer? Why? 2 hours, he repeated. With that, he turned and left. The three of us looked at each other. A hairdryer? Opera shrugged. Hairdryers meant electricity, which meant civilization, which meant he wasn't worried. So he caught the waitress's attention and did what he did best. Excuse me, ma'am, could I have some more of those delicious eggs? In a glass. A half hour later, Wall Street threw open Opera's and my door and stormed into our room. I hate him, she cried. I hate them both. I glanced down at Opera. He was on his knees with a half-eaten Twinkie, trying to lure a cockroach out from under our dresser. I guess he was kind of bored with my company. Hate who? I asked Wall Street as she plopped down on my bed. She gave a good sniff and angrily wiped away the tears in her eyes. My brother, my mother, everybody. Well, that about covered everyone I knew. She continued, Pastor Bergman's always saying if you pray for something hard enough and believe, and if it's the right thing, God will answer it. Yeah. Well, I've been praying ever since Mickey left home. I've been praying and believing he'd be coming back again. And he's in the room going at it with Mama again. They're shouting and everything. No way is he coming back. All those prayers were a waste. Wall Street, I tried to explain. Just 'cause you prayed. I believed in everything and it still didn't work. Sometimes praying and having faith isn't. If God can't answer a simple prayer like bringing my brother home, then maybe he can't answer any prayer. Before I could say anything, Wall Street hopped off the bed and stormed out of the room. She was pretty torn up, and she had a pretty good reason. Like I said, we prayed for her brother all the time in Sunday school, that he'd come home and start believing in God and everything. And now, after all that prayer, it sounded like things were worse than ever. I really wanted to help, and I was sorry she'd left. But a part of me was also glad she'd gone, because that part of me had no idea what answer to give her. Wall Street's hairdryer made it down to the parking lot, but she never did. Probably got some hot tips on the stock market, I joked. Wall Street was the only kid I knew who planned to make $1 million by the time she was 14. Miguel nodded as he unwound the extension cord and plugged in the hairdryer. He knew the real reason she was gone. Like me, he knew it had nothing to do with making money or the stock market. He knew it was because of him. Opera was beside us, finishing off his third bag of corn chips. He'd passed a vending machine in the lobby and thought he'd stock up till lunch. One thing you can say about Opera, he does love his empty calories. Don't get me wrong, the guy still believes in your 4 basic food groups. Only his 4 food groups are cookies, chips, chocolate, and candy. The 4 Ks, he called them. Opera isn't so hot at spelling either. So what's the plan? I asked. Since it's too windy to use a real balloon, I figured we'd make a model one. Make? I asked, nervously shoving my glasses back on my nose. You mean like with our own hands? Obviously, this guy didn't fully appreciate my reputation for clumsiness. It's not that I'm a klutz, but how many people do you know that throw out their backs when opening up a pop can? Or electrocute themselves by turning on a light switch? Or whose parents called 911 whenever they see him carrying a hammer or a screwdriver? That's right, you're going to make a model all by yourself. Maybe you should give the paramedics a call and have them stand by just in case, I offered. Miguel reached into a bag and took out a bunch of foot-long squares of tissue paper, 27 to be exact. Also, some glue, scissors, paper clips, and wire. All instruments of death in my inexperienced hands. Then he told us what to do. 1. Make 9 of these strips by gluing 3 squares together. Overlap them about 3/4 of an inch. 2. Fold each half of the 9 strips and put them on top of each other so the folds all face the same direction. Let me show you the page because it does show you the pictures too. Number 3, paper clip the strips together and draw half of a spearhead on the top strip. Cut along that outline. 4, glue the curved edges of these strips together, overlap a 1/2 inch. When they're dry, fold the glued seams back on themselves and glue again. So again, there's the pictures that they show. Okay. 5, glue in wire from a coat hanger around this opening and fold the paper around it a little. 6, tie the top together, fill with hot air, and let her go. Before I knew it, Opera and I were working up a storm. I've thrown in some diagrams and instructions in case you're interested in making your own. There were a few minor setbacks, like the glue bottle that was all plugged up till I squished and squeezed and, curse splat, it exploded on everyone. Then there were the scissors. Somehow my t-shirt and jeans wound up more cut than the paper. And someday I'll have to apologize to Opera for the big chunks of hair missing from the back of his head, if he ever finds out. In a couple of hours, we were all finished. We had ourselves a giant 3-foot-tall paper balloon. I still don't know why we need the hair dryer, Opera said. Watch and be amazed. Miguel smiled as he shoved the hair dryer inside the balloon and snapped it on. Our balloon immediately began to fill with air, and as it filled, it started to rise. Grab hold of it! Don't let it get away, Miguel ordered. Why is it rising like this? Opera shouted as he grabbed the bottom. 'Cause it's hot air, Miguel explained. That's what makes the big balloons float too. That's why you use that burner thingy when you fly, I offered. You got it. Hot air always rises. If that's the case, why doesn't Vice Principal Watkins float off? I asked. Before Miguel could answer, there was a loud whoosh. I threw my head back to see a giant balloon slowly drift over our heads. That's your balloon, I exclaimed. Not mine, Miguel said as he shielded his eye from the sun. The markings are different. Hey, Mickey, 3 fellows shouted and waved from up in the basket. Mike hollered back, Hi, guys. Why weren't you flying today? It was beautiful. Too much wind, he shouted. Too much wind? The tallest member of the group started to laugh. More like too little courage. I could tell by the workout Miguel gave his jaw that they'd hit a nerve, but he played it cool. We'll see about courage. You fellas still planning to race me on Saturday? Wouldn't miss it for the world, the tall one shouted. Unless, of course, you chicken out. They were nearly out of view as they drifted over the trees on the other side of the parking lot, but you could still hear them laugh. I'll be there, Mickey yelled after them. Count on it. More laughter as they finally disappeared. Who are they? Opera asked. Idiots, Miguel answered. That tall guy with the mouth works for the other resort down the road. He's always bugging me. You guys have races? I asked. All the time, Miguel nodded. Hey, maybe we could do that with you, Opera exclaimed. I shot him the strongest death glare. The type that says, I hope you have a life insurance policy or at least know a nearby hospital. Finally, Miguel snapped off the hairdryer. Our little balloon was bulging at the seams and bulking to be let go. Shall we do it? He asked. Opera and I nodded, and for good reason. If we hung on much longer, we'd be joining those other guys in the sky. Okay, he ordered, on my count. 1, 2, 3. We let go of our balloon. It shot up like a rocket, but it didn't make a sound. Nothing. Total silence. Higher and higher it rose until it was over the tops of the trees. It's amazing what a little hot air and paper could do, plus whatever pieces of my shirt and Opera's hair were still glued to it. You guys want to follow it? Miguel asked. Sure, we both exclaimed. Jump in the pickup and let's see where it goes. He didn't have to ask twice. We hopped in the back and hung on for dear life as Miguel took off. Rocks and gravel flew in all directions as we spun out, hooting and hollering all the way. Miguel drove like a madman as we bounced and skidded down dozens of different dirt roads, trying to keep ahead of the balloon, trying to keep it in sight. I don't want to say Miguel was a reckless driver, but for a while I was beginning to think I wouldn't have to die in the balloon after all. Just a few more miles of riding with Miguel would do it. Lots of times we lost the balloon behind trees, but Miguel always seemed to know where it would show up next. Isn't this fun? Opera shouted. Tomorrow that will be us up there. Just think of it. That's exactly what I was trying not to think of. And the only fun the only fun I had was knowing that the balloon was up in the air and we were down on the ground. But Opera kept babbling about how in 24 hours that would be us up there, floating lazily in the breeze, drifting silently over the earth, blowing right into those high voltage wires? That's right. Before we knew it, the paper balloon hit some high voltage lines. Miguel slammed on the brakes and we all hopped out to watch. In a matter of seconds, the balloon burst into flames, and our little pride and joy turned into our little pile of ashes. Oh well, Opera shrugged as we climbed back in the pickup. At least that's not us in there. I gave him a look. He shrugged again. I glanced at my watch. It was nearly noon. I figured that gave me roughly 18 hours. 18 hours to live, if I survive the ride back. 18 hours. And then, well, then that would be us up there. All right, that's the end of chapter 3. Chapter 4 is called D-Day. Dun, dun, dun. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow. All right, you guys, have a great day. Bye.